Not all engines are created equal. Some barely make it past 100,000 miles, while others just keep going and going. From Toyota's reputation for reliability to Honda's engine durability, this is a list of the top 10 engines built to stand the test of time. These engines are so overbuilt, so tough, that they can last for hundreds of thousands, sometimes even 1,000,000 miles. A few of these might be exactly what you expect, but some could surprise you. If you have ever driven one, you already know why they belong on this list. Number 10, the Volkswagen EA888 R4. All right, let's talk about an engine that almost everyone has encountered, whether they realize it or not, the Volkswagen EA888 R4. Volkswagen has been building four-cylinder engines longer than most of us have been driving, and the EA888 is their crown jewel. It's been under the hood of everything from the Volkswagen Golf to the Audi A4, and even Seat and Skoda models in Europe. Think of it as the Swiss Army knife of engines, versatile, efficient, and surprisingly long-lasting. Now, let's get into the nitty-gritty. The EA888 comes in two variations, a 1.8-liter turbocharged inline-4 and a 2.0-liter version, the latter being the more powerful one. The horsepower? Anywhere from 150 to over 300, depending on the model. That means whether you're in a Volkswagen Passat or a Golf R, this engine packs a punch. What makes it so durable? Well, turbocharging, variable valve timing, and direct fuel injection all work together to make it more efficient and powerful without burning a hole in your wallet at the gas pump. That's right, even performance models can hit 40 miles per gallon, which is a huge win. While some folks are skeptical of turbocharged engines lasting forever, we found a Volkswagen Golf with this engine that had nearly 190,000 miles on it and was still going strong. So if you're someone who wants power, efficiency, and reliability all in one package, the EA888 is worth considering. Now, we know some of you might have strong opinions about Volkswagen's reliability, so here's your chance. Do share your thoughts at the end of this video. Number 9, BMW M50. If you know BMWs, you know this. They love their inline-6 engines. It is a formula that has worked for them for decades, but even among BMW's greatest hits, one engine stands out as one of the most reliable ever built, the M50. Now, this engine was only around for 6 years, from 1990 to 1996, but in that short time, it made a serious impact. It came in 2.0-liter and 2.5-liter versions, putting out anywhere from 148 to 189 horsepower. That might not sound like much today, but back in the early 90s, this was a solid, smooth, and refined powerhouse. What made the M50 special? For starters, it was the first BMW engine to feature variable valve timing, what BMW calls VANOS. That meant better low-end torque without sacrificing top-end power. The interesting thing about this engine, the M50 was built tough. We are talking about a cast iron block that could take serious abuse. Enthusiasts love bolting on turbochargers and superchargers, pushing this engine well beyond its factory limits. Some even say it handles boost better than later BMW inline-6s. Is the M50 one of BMW's greatest engines, or is it just another overhyped inline-6? And speaking of legendary 4-cylinder and 6-cylinder engines, next up, we have one from Honda that might just take the crown for the most reliable high-revving engine ever made. Number 8, Honda K20. If you know Honda, then you already know they have built some of the most reliable and high-revving engines on the planet. And among them, one engine stands above the rest, the Honda K20. Now, this little 2.0-liter, naturally aspirated inline-4 may not sound like much on paper, but do not let the numbers fool you. It produces up to 200 horsepower and 166 pound-feet of torque. And here's the best part. There are K20 engines out there pushing nearly 300,000 miles and still running strong. So, what makes the K20 so legendary? Well, first off, Honda built it with reliability in mind. Unlike the older Honda engines, the K20 rotates clockwise, making it easier to swap into rear-wheel drive cars. And then there is Honda's secret weapon, VTEC. The K20's variable valve timing system means that at lower speeds it runs efficiently. But when you push the RPMs up, the second set of intake valves open fully, giving you that signature VTEC surge. And if that was not enough, this engine is chain-driven instead of using a timing belt, making it even more durable over the years. Honda built the K20 to last, and it has proven itself time and time again. But if you think Honda is the only brand that makes a bulletproof four-cylinder, wait until we talk about Toyota's 22RE later in the list. That engine has been known to rack up 1 million miles. Number 7. Small block Chevy V8. Now let's be honest. If you have ever worked on a car, swapped an engine, or even just talked about American V8s, you already know about this one. The small block Chevy V8 is as American as apple pie and 4th of July fireworks. It is reliable and powerful and has been the go-to engine for hot rodders, muscle car lovers, and pickup truck owners for decades. First introduced in 1997, this engine has been in everything, from the Chevy Silverado to the Camaro and even the Corvette. It comes in just about every displacement you can imagine, from 4.8 liters all the way up to 7.4 liters. Depending on the model, horsepower can range from 255 to 755. That is some serious power. But here is why this engine is on our list. It is built to last. The cast iron blocks on the truck versions and lightweight aluminum blocks in performance models make it tough, and it is one of the easiest engines to work on. Need more power? Bolt on a supercharger. Want to swap it into something else? GM sells it as a crate engine. You can drop an LT1 in your project car and get 460 horsepower for under $10,000. What do you think? Is the small block Chevy V8 the greatest American engine ever made? Speaking of bulletproof American engines, the next one was a workhorse found in everything from Buicks to UPS trucks, and it just would not die. Number 6. GM 3800. If you grew up in the 80s, 90s, or early 2000s, chances are you either owned, drove, or at least knew someone with a car powered by this engine, the legendary GM 3800 V6. This engine was everywhere: Buicks, Pontiacs, Chevys, you name it. It was under the hood of millions of General Motors vehicles from the late 80s all the way until 2008. Why? Because it was one of the most reliable, efficient, and powerful V6 engines GM ever built. The 3800 started out in the 1960s as part of Buick's Fireball V6 lineup, but by the late 80s it had evolved into a fuel-injected powerhouse that could easily go 200,000 miles or more with basic maintenance. And if you wanted even more power? GM threw on a supercharger in the mid-90s, bumping the horsepower up to 240, and turning family sedans like the Pontiac Grand Prix GTP into highway sleepers. It was nearly indestructible. Cast iron block, overhead valves, and a simple, proven design made it one of the easiest engines to maintain. Even today, you will still find old Buick LeSabres and Pontiac Bonnevilles running like new with over 300,000 miles on the clock. Number 5. Chrysler Slant 6. Now, if you have ever driven an old Dodge, Plymouth, or Chrysler, there is a very good chance you have experienced the legend of the Chrysler Slant 6. This engine was so tough that Chrysler kept it in production for over 40 years, from 1959 all the way to 2000. That is the kind of reliability that earns you a spot on this list. So, what made the Slant 6 so special? Well, for starters, it was used in 31 different models, everything from the Dodge Dart and Challenger to the Plymouth Duster, Chrysler Cordoba, and even pickup trucks. If there was ever an engine that could do it all, this was it. The Slant 6 got its name because it was literally slanted at a 30-degree angle, which gave it a lower center of gravity and better cooling. It came in 3 different sizes: 170, 198, and 225 cubic inches. But no matter which one you had, it was built like a tank. And here is the best part. This engine was not just reliable, it was surprisingly versatile. Chrysler even used it in racing applications, proving that durability and performance could go hand in hand. Next up, we have an engine that some people call the 1 million mile engine, a brand that built its reputation entirely on reliability. Number 4. Toyota 22 RE. The Toyota 22 RE is one of the toughest engines ever made. This 2.4-liter four-cylinder was built between 1981 and 1995, and in that time, it earned a reputation for being nearly unbreakable. Some folks even call it the 1 million mile engine, and no, that is not just an exaggeration. There are Toyota trucks out there still running strong with 500,000 miles or more. Toyota took their older 20R engine and made it even better by adding electronic fuel injection in 1982, creating the 22 RE. It may not have been the fastest engine on the planet, but it was built to outlast the truck around it. And here is a fun fact. This little workhorse even made its way into racing. Back in 1985, a Toyota Celica with a modified 22 RE finished third in the Macau Grand Prix, beating out more powerful cars with 6-cylinder engines. Not bad for a pickup truck motor, right? Number 3. Mercedes-Benz OM617. If there was ever an engine that refused to die, it is the Mercedes-Benz OM617. This thing is the gold standard of diesel durability, and if you have ever been to Europe, the Middle East, or Africa, you have probably seen one still running as a taxi today, decades after it rolled off the production line. Built from 1974 to 1991, this 3.0-liter 5-cylinder diesel was legendary for high mileage and reliability. We are talking about engines that regularly cross 600,000 miles without ever being rebuilt. There are even some examples that have hit 1 million miles, and that is not a myth. Mercedes built this engine like a tank, but it was not the only one built to last. Remember the Chrysler Slant 6? That gas-powered inline 6 ran for over 4 decades in everything from muscle cars to trucks. But while the Slant 6 dominated America, the OM617 became a global diesel legend. So, what made the OM617 so indestructible? A cast iron block, a chain-driven overhead camshaft, and a simple overbuilt design that could withstand just about anything. It was first used in the Mercedes W115 in 1974, making just 79 horsepower. But that was not the point. It was built to last forever. Then, in 1976, Mercedes took things up a notch with a turbocharged version producing 187 horsepower, which later evolved to 227 horsepower. That turbo version set 16 land speed records in the Mercedes C111 concept car. Not bad for a diesel, right? Number 2. Ford 300 straight 6. If you have ever driven a Ford truck from the 60s, 70s, or 80s, chances are you have experienced the legendary Ford 300 straight 6. And if you have ever tried to kill one of these engines, well, good luck. Built from 1964 to 1996, this 4.9-liter inline 6 was the definition of indestructible. It started life in the 1965 Ford F-Series pickup, but quickly found its way into everything from dump trucks and tractors to water pumps and even ski lifts. If it needed an engine that could take abuse and keep running, Ford threw a 300 in it. Now, let's talk power. When it first hit the market, it made 170 horsepower. But due to changing power ratings, that number was revised down to 114 in 1978. By 1987, Ford introduced fuel injection, bumping it back up to 150 horsepower. But let's be real, this engine was never about horsepower. It was all about torque, reliability, and lasting forever. How tough was it? There are countless stories of these engines running with little to no oil, sitting abandoned for years only to fire up on the first crank, and even surviving full-on abuse in the Baja 1000 race. So, do you agree that the Ford 300 straight 6 is the most bulletproof truck engine ever made? Or do you think something else deserves that title? Number 1. Toyota 2 JZ GTE. And finally, here we are, the #1 engine on our list. And if you know anything about legendary engines, this one should come as no surprise. Even if you have never owned one, you have definitely heard about it. This 3.0-liter twin-turbocharged inline-six has become one of the most respected and sought-after engines in the world. Built from 1991 to 2005, the 2JZ GTE was Toyota's response to the Nissan Skyline GTR's RB26, and let's just say, they got it right. In stock form, it produced 280 horsepower and 333 pound-feet of torque. But here is where things get crazy. This engine can handle 1,000 horsepower on stock internals. That is right, no rebuild, no major modifications. Just slap on a bigger turbo and tune it properly, and you are easily in supercar territory. What makes the 2JZ GTE so bulletproof? A cast iron block, a DOHC 24 valve aluminum head, and Toyota's meticulous engineering. It was so overbuilt that people are still pushing well beyond 2,000 horsepower with the right upgrades. And thanks to the Fast and the Furious, the 2JZ became the holy grail of Japanese performance engines. And there you have it, 10 engines that prove that some things really are built to last. These machines have proven that with the right engineering, some engines just refuse to quit. But now we want to hear from you. Which engine do you think is the toughest of them all? Do you agree with our list, or is there an engine you think should have made the cut? Drop your thoughts in the comments.